So as many of you guys probably already know, if you use a new client, Riot has this new way of distinguishing champions and how they play through this little roulette wheel here. And something I noticed when I was on the PBE and before Warwick got his rework is that this wheel was the same with pre-rework Warwick, and I was like, why the hell does he have a crowd control point when he only has a slow on his W? And I thought the wheel was pretty inaccurate. Then when the rework came out, I was like, oh, this wheel is actually accurate. So the next two reworks coming out are Warwick and Galio, and I noticed that their wheels are pretty off to their current kits as well. So maybe if we look at this wheel, we can speculate on what abilities will be changed. First off, with Warwick, it's not as changed as Galio's, but I'll get to Galio's later. With Warwick, we see 1 damage, 1 toughness, and 1 crowd control, which pretty much makes sense because of his ult, his tankiness, and his damage. But something that is a little weird is that he has no point in mobility, and his entire E is basically a mobility spell. And you may be thinking, well, this says quickly move around the map using blinks and dashes, and it's not a blink and a dash, it's a straight movement speed buff. But if you look at champions like Volibear, which only has a dash on his Q, you can see he also has a point in mobility, or someone like Evelyn, which has a dash on her W, or speed up, also has a point of mobility. So it makes sense for Warwick to have a point of mobility, so Warwick doesn't. And since it's close to his rework, and I noticed that these wheels changed a bit recently with Warwick and Galio, I guess a good speculation for Warwick's rework is that he will not have his E at all. It's a pretty safe guess, but yeah. And he may also not have his W, since there's no point in utility, and you may be thinking, well, this says shields, healing, and movement speed. Warwick doesn't give movement speed or shields or healing, but he does give attack speed. And if you go to champions like Nunu, which only give attack speed to champions, he has a utility, although he does give them movement speed. But there's other champions who have a point in utility that also give like minimal buffs to champions like attack speed. I just can't think of any off the top of my head, but that is the case. Like for some reason Warwick has utility. I don't know really what he gives to champions besides maybe his W wall or split pushing with his ult, but yeah, anyways, so I personally would think there'd be utility on Warwick. So I think, for speculation, that his E and his W are gonna get completely changed on Warwick, which is a pretty safe guess since he's getting a full rework, kind of like Yorick, Rise, Taric level rework. So the main reason why I want to make this video is Galio. Galio has damage, which makes sense, toughness, which makes sense, but he has 2 points of crowd control. And when I think of Galio, I don't really think of CC. Like, his ult is a huge CC ability, but besides that, he only has a slow on his Q, and you may be thinking that'd be enough to qualify for 2 points of crowd control. In my opinion, it'd only be enough to count for 1. A good example of this is Varus. Varus has a big CC ultimate and a slow on his E, which is kind of identical to Galio, who has a big CC ultimate and a slow on one of his basic abilities, and he only has 1 point into crowd control. Another reason why this has been changed for the rework is that there is no points in mobility, which we've already been over, that mobility doesn't necessarily only mean blinks and dashes, it also means granting movement speed, and Galio's E gives quite a bit of movement speed, so it'd be weird that he has no mobility. And I think the biggest culprit here, he has no points into utility, which says right here that it's based off giving beneficial effects like shields, healing, and movement speed. Now, Galio only gives healing to himself, based off the enemy attacking his shielded target, and with champions like Vladimir, he doesn't have utility, but obviously he heals himself a shit ton. So, that would be correct for this. But, Galio does give a shield and movement speed to allies. He gives movement speed to allies through his E, which is quite a bit. And he gives, at rank 5, 90 MR and armor to a target ally when he shields them, which isn't a traditional shield. It doesn't block damage with the gray health. Well, not gray health like Tom Kench, but you know what I mean. Like, it isn't an actual shield in the traditional sense, but it does give a ton of resistances. So yeah. So it's really weird for him to have no utility here. So based off this wheel for his rework, my prediction is he's definitely gonna get a new ability that gives hard CC as a basic ability. His W will probably be changed a shit ton, probably just to give it'll either be changed not to be put on allies. The healing can still stay because, as we saw with Vladimir, healing to yourself does not contribute to utility, and I'm guessing shielding yourself wouldn't grant utility either. I'll just quickly go to Ergon and see if he has any utility because he just shields himself. No, he has no utility, so shielding yourself wouldn't add to utility. So my guess is that they may change since W is such an iconic ability on Galio, in my opinion. His W and his Alt are the two biggest iconic abilities. I think that maybe keep the W, change some things about it, obviously, and make it only work on Galio and not on allies. His E is obviously gonna be completely changed since he has no points in utility for the movement speed to allies or mobility for himself, so I think that's going to be completely removed, and he's probably going to have no gap closers. His ult's probably going to stay the same, and he's probably, on his new E, it's probably going to have some sort of hard CC, maybe like a stun or something like that. But one of the main reasons why I think the W will stay similar is that he has toughness on him, and the W gives resistances, so that would keep the toughness factor to him. But also, if he keeps his passive, or his passive is just changed so his basic abilities scale off MR, kind of like how Rise's abilities scale off of mana, he'd also retain the toughness thing. And even if he has no direct tank like buffs in his kit, he'd probably still have a point of toughness just because he's usually built as a tank. But I don't know. Is there any champions that are just built as a tank, don't have any tank on them, but still have toughness? Like tank enhancing stuff on their kit. Actually, yeah, Warwick and some other champions. Because I was just thinking for a second that if I go back to Warwick doesn't have any inherent tanky stuff in his kit, like Q doesn't make him more tanky, W doesn't make him more tanky, etc. But he does have a toughness now on his kit, so maybe there'd be some tank buff thing added to his kit, probably to replace the E, but then I just realized that Warwick has nothing like that, and he also has toughness, and I'm sure a ton of other champs have it. Anyways, this was just a short little video just to point out that little wheel stat thing. It usually changes a month or a couple weeks before the reworks come out, and as you know, as we know, Riot right now is their two visual updates they're working on. The two big ones they're working on now is Warwick and Galio. So I noticed that their utility wheels were kind of out of whack, and I decided to talk about this since Warwick's utility wheel was out of whack right before he got reworked. So yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.